Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Spirit of Liberty. Appreciate you joining me live today. It's been a couple weeks since we've done one of these. Had a lot going on lately, but glad to be back with you live and in person. Hope you get a blessing from the program today. And if you're new to this program, on Tuesday afternoons, I try to do these live streams geared towards men's issues, and things just do help men be better Christian men. And so if you have any suggestions or requests for topics too, let me know what those are. You can email them to me or leave them in the comments. Either way, and maybe we can get to that subject if we have not yet. But what I want to talk about today is one that I think is really important for men in general, but I think especially for independent fundamental Baptist men, and that is this art of disagreeing. Now, I am someone who is, even though I'm the one speaking on this right now, I won't say that I'm an expert at this. There's a few things that I will admit I'm not very good at. I am not a good artist when it comes to writing something. I cannot draw anything. I am not artistic in any way at all. And when it comes to the art of disagreeing, it's something that I have to work on. It is something that I'm not naturally good at. And I think if I want, I could blame a lot of that on my IFB upbringing, because we're just typically not real good at that. And certain cultures too often are way more argumentative than other cultures. And I don't think the IFB culture is an exception to that. I think one of the reasons we're like that too is because, in the independent fundamental Baptist world, we're real big on manliness, and and so we attract a lot of the alpha male types. And, something that, the alpha male can kind of struggle with is just, letting anything go. We've always got to be right. We got to play king of the mountain and knock everyone else down. And it's one of those things where that can be a very good positive trait. That type of attitude is very needed when it comes to many things. But sometimes, when it comes to all qualities, that man has, it's not even about whether or not these are good or bad qualities. The truth is, whatever you have going for you, because we have sin nature, because we have the flesh, we can take any of these things and kind of turn it into a bad thing. It's not hard for us to do. If you're somebody who is bold, that's good, but you can use that boldness in a sinful way. If you're somebody who's strong and you're just really tough, that's a good thing, but you can also use that in a bad way, to where you're hurting people. So sin nature always gets in the way of things, always messes things up. We got to watch out for that, especially as men. But at the same time, what we often see happening in our world today is they're blaming certain traits that aren't necessarily bad as being the problem, like manliness, strength, and all that kind of stuff that we should be promoting in men. They try to make it out to be a bad thing, and they want to make us these mousy, effeminate types, and that's not the way to go either. But one area, though, that will always bring out the worst in people is whenever a disagreement takes place. And we're going into the time of year too, where we're getting close to the holiday season, and every year you hear all the articles and you hear all the things about not talking about politics on Thanksgiving and during the holidays, especially too since we're in election year and people are so divisive on these things. And if you're somebody like me, if I'm in an environment where it's probably going to be divisive, that's where I'm more likely to want to talk about it. And that's just kind of that's how I am. I'm the kind of person, I like a good emotional conversation, if you want to call it that, a good spirited debate. I like that kind of thing. And it is, but at the same time too, I don't want to cross lines in sin whenever there's disagreements, because there's going to be disagreements. And this ability to simply just disagree with someone without some sort of retaliation is kind of a lost art in our culture today. And again, while this is a problem in many cultures, in America too, I believe that if you're from the IFB culture, you're probably going to struggle with this a little more than other cultures. But before we kind of get into some of the main points of this, we're going to get into some scriptures at the end that I think is really important, because some of the things that people do to try to manipulate you and control you when they disagree, it's important that we can see through these things. But I do believe that there are specific causes and challenges that we have today in 2022 America that makes disagreeing such a big thing, such a hostile thing, and something that seems to be more of a problem today. And again, human nature has always been the same. New technology, all's new technology ever is new tools for us to commit the same old sins with. So that's a great thing about the Bible. If we study the Bible, if we study the principles of the Bible, those things are timeless, and they will help us in every one of these situations. But let's talk about some of these specific things today that I think is making it where people just don't know how to handle disagreements, and what makes people just get so stressed out because somebody dares disagree with them. We've got a cancel culture, mob mentality today that can't handle hearing somebody have a dissenting opinion on anything. But I do believe social media is one of the big reasons for a lot of the hostility that we see, and what it almost seems like too, just an escalation of these things. And obviously I wasn't around back in the early days, but fighting's always been a thing over politics. I remember there's an old Disney movie set in the 1800s. It's called Family Band, and a part of the story is there's an election going on, and the Republicans and Democrats are all fighting with each other. And one of the funny scenes at the end of the movie, after the election is over, and the Republicans, I think it was the Republican that won, a big fist fight broke out at a place. And it was funny. I mean, the people, man, they were hostile with each other. So this has always been going on, okay? It's always been going on. And it was just funny watching that. And I typically like to watch that every election year, like every 4 years, because it just reminds me of what's going on today. But in this, with social media, this is where we see a lot of this stuff today, and where we're typically going to watch it manifest itself. Because with social media, everyone has a platform, and it makes people very easily be able to become obsessed with their own opinion. There was a time where people recognized the fact that, yeah, I don't really have a voice, I don't have a platform, and so a lot of people, they would just kind of shut up. They wouldn't say anything because they were able to look around and see reality and understand the fact that nobody really cared what they thought. Now, thanks to social media, it makes it real easy for you to have a very inflated idea of your opinion and how much it really matters. And a lot of what people are seeing, experiencing, living in the social media world, it really is just kind of it's a delusion. Okay? It's not what everybody thinks. But social media, one of the things that it does is it allows you to isolate yourself too from normal people, and it enables you to find a community of weirdos that you never would have found in a real physical community. There's usually not that many village idiots. There's usually just the one village idiot. But now, thanks to social media, all the village idiots can find each other from all the villages, and they can feel like they have a large, strong community, a bunch of people who believe just like them. And so before, where the village idiot might have been smart enough to know, you know what, I am an outsider, I am a weirdo, nobody thinks the way I do, and they would just kind of go do their own thing. Now, thanks to social media, the village idiots all think very highly of themselves because of the fact that they've got a few followers, and it enables more stupidity to be barked forth than ever before. So social media, it makes things seem worse too, whenever there is a disagreement, because of the fact that, you have now a public written record of someone's opinion. And so before, when you would disagree with somebody, it was a disagreement based on a conversation between the two. And when you're having a conversation with somebody too, you've got more than just words being spoken, but you also have body language that's a part of it. You have tone of voice that's a part of it. So sometimes somebody could say something that might even be factually wrong or slightly different, but you're not going to take it in a real hostile way. Where now, because people can just tweet something with just a few characters, they can do a Facebook post, it's real short, saying whatever, it's real easy for you to just kind of read your own tone in there and to have your own thoughts behind it and just take things in the worst way possible. And before, when the person maybe just said something in passing, that you disagreed with, now you can go back, you can keep looking at it on social media over and over again. You can go and look and see all the people that are liking it, and the people that are commenting on it, causing you to relive it over and over and over again in your mind. One time I had a pastor who was, very fragile and very sensitive, who had a problem with something that I had preached and something that I had said in that message. And he was just talking about how I was just going on and on and on about the subject. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I only covered that one time. I said, are you sure you didn't go back and listen to it over and over again? And, and that's probably what it was. Because it's like, what was spoken and live streamed was only said one time, hurt his feelings, but then every time maybe he sees that sermon shared, every time he sees a clip or something from it, it's like he's hearing it again and again and again. And it's like, dude, you're just fragile. Stop obsessing over it. But now you have that ability to do that, to just relive it over and over and over again in your mind, and that kind of makes things worse. And again, sometimes people say things in passing. They might say it joking or they say it without thinking. But with social media, it's all out there and it never really goes away either. Because even if you take, you change later and you delete it, somebody screenshotted it, saved it in a file like a weirdo, and they're going to use it against you at some point. So social media has really hurt the art of disagreeing. It almost always makes things seem worse than it actually is, or actually makes it worse than it actually is. And so another problem we have in our culture too, the reason we're not very good at disagreeing, is we have 24-hour news channels that are 95% opinion. Most news channels, it's just people who are supposed to be reporting the facts of what took place, just giving their opinions, and which is not really news. It's typically people pushing a political agenda, trying to keep things stirred up, so they can get good ratings. They need to keep you fired up. They need to keep you mad at the other side. Fox News needs you mad at CNN, and CNN needs you mad at Fox News. That's how that's how they get ratings. That's how they're going to get people to come back and watch. If they were just all reporting the facts, well then, you're only going to need to see that one time. You're only going to need to hear it from one news station. But no, we've got to get all the different opinions and things. And all they're doing is just feeding, that, need for conflict or whatever that people have, just making things worse. But, if we actually think about some things for a few minutes, when it comes to political views, okay, if we were just to actually stop and evaluate, how much does one's political views affect your personal life from day to day? Okay, your neighbor with the Pritzker sign in his yard, okay, and I don't have one of those, but if you do, or a Biden sign in his yard, how much does their political thoughts, how much is that affecting your life? Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. You say, it's affecting because they vote these people in, they're taking our freedom, all that stuff. All right, okay, I get that. But how much more power does the individual you are arguing with, how much more power do they have than you do? Okay, because last I looked, you only get one vote, unless, and we don't go into that, but legally, technically, you're only supposed to have one vote. Okay, So keep that in mind. Don't they have the right to their own opinion? Or are you looking to rule over them? See, that's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, we're all tyrant wannabes. We're all dictator wannabes. Some people just want the Democrats to be, our, monarchs and rulers. Some people want it to be Republicans. Some people, even libertarian types, they just want it to be themselves. They want to be the ruler over everybody. So anything they can do to take away somebody's vote, cancel out somebody's vote, they've got to do that because they want to rule over them. They want to reign over them, and they can't just let other people have their own opinion. And again, what are they doing to come into your life and affect what you do? And people, they used to be able to just kind of retreat in their own homes, where they had a real safe space to go. But now, because of social media, because of the news, we let every nut job's opinion into our home, and we let it drive us crazy and get us stirred up all the time. And that's not good. That is not healthy. That's making people just kind of crazy. And we're seeing a lot of that today. And so, right now, one of the things that we're currently seeing that just blows my mind. And when I first started seeing this, it was, amongst, like hardcore atheist, homosexual types, where they were acting like Republicans are like this hardcore Christian nationalist party, and like it's like the Christians are just trying to take over the country right now through the Republicans. And I'm sitting back and I'm like, wait a minute. First off, I'm not seeing a Christian movement in this country affect things politically at all. And I'm definitely not seeing it coming from the Republican Party. I mean, the Democrats are acting like Trump is just like this hardcore, Christian nationalist type that's going to just force Christianity on everybody. I don't see that at all. In fact, when Trump was running for president in the Republican primary, at the time, now I was definitely wrong about this, but at the time, I was kind of supporting Ted Cruz over Trump. But then, like not long after that, though, I started noticing that everyone was making Ted Cruz out to be like this great Christian. And I remember thinking, you know what? I don't want him to get elected president because, for one, I don't believe he represents Christian values. But everybody thinks he does. And whenever there's a big fight between Republicans and Democrats going on, I don't want it to be perceived as a fight between Christians and Democrats, because Republicans don't represent Christianity. But yet, even the mainstream news media now, they're seeming to be pushing this idea. And let me tell you, it's affecting people. Just last week, I talked to two different people at two different houses where we just kind of got shut down because they saw us as just like Republicans out campaigning. And it's like, and I talked to the one, I was like, man, I am not here to talk about Republican stuff. I don't believe these people represent our values at all. But they had a very hostile feeling towards Christians based on actions of Republicans. Not actions of Christians, but on actions of Republicans. And so, we're seeing just how much the news media is affecting just dumb people in this country who are not capable of thinking for themselves. It's really crazy. And so, the reason people act the way they do in their behavior, it's often because they are just copying what they see on the news media. The way people act and respond, it's exactly what's being portrayed on television. And the reason this is often a problem with certain religious groups is because they are copying the people that they are following in a church. And often Christians are just as bad as the world when it comes to disagreeing because they're following their leaders. And pastors, they can be some of the worst in this area. And we are, as pastors, we're typically very passionate about our beliefs, as we should be, and we get up and we preach, like we're telling 100% truth. And I believe most people are, to the best of their ability. But at the same time, too, a lot of people when it comes to some kind of disagreement, immediately just go to crazy extremes to just demonize any opposition. Again, it's like, your belief or your opinion, it's not strong enough to stand on its own 2 feet, and you've got to just go and absolutely demonize the other side. You got to make them out to be the worst thing in the world. I just had an interaction today on Facebook with someone who disagrees with my eschatology, and so they start talking about satanic replacement theology, stuff like that. It's like, really, satanic? Why do you run to those extremes? Why do people, are they so quick to just go to satanic whenever there's a disagreement on something? It's like, there are some areas that in the Bible that are difficult, and people might disagree a little bit, but it's like, satanic, really? You start telling somebody that you believe the timing of end times events is a little different than they do, and all of a sudden, I've had people call me Hitler because of it. It's like, really? That's what we're going to jump to? We're going to go to the ultimate extreme? Where does that come from? It's preachers in their pulpits a lot of times. Okay, the way people are acting out in the world today is because they were copying what they're watching on the news media. The reason many people act the way they do in the Christian world is because the people they're following, sometimes in their own churches, maybe people they're following on the internet, and they're just always going to the extreme. And in the IFB, we've pushed not changing so much and not compromising. We've kind of created some monsters in some ways, and we hear all the warnings about not listening to certain people, and there's some people we shouldn't listen to. We hear passages about rebuking people sharply and all that kind of stuff, but you got to understand, those things all have their place. They're not meant to be done in every situation. The Bible does say in a situation, wherefore rebuke them sharply. But that doesn't mean every single person that we have any disagreement with, that we rebuke them sharply. There are times, Paul withstood Peter to the face. That does not mean we get in somebody's face in every single situation. And people do, man, they get crazy about stuff. Some people like that about sports. They will literally be that way about a sports team where they can almost come to blows over some kind of disagreement, which I think is insane. But at the same time, it's pretty normal. I'm in the process of reading a book right now, and one of the people that were writing the book was talking about a disagreement that he had with a pastor about dispensationalism, and he's like, the argument apparently turned physical, and and he said the person was unsuccessful in that area, but at the same time, I was just like, we're going to get physical over a doctrinal dispute. How is that going to prove anything? Literally, if I'm having an argument with somebody, do I really think I'm going to change their mind by physically dominating them? And I've had several people do that with me, where they have literally, threatened to beat me up. And it's like, okay. And we'll be arguing about something online, something doctrinal, and they're like, oh, I bet you wouldn't say that to my face if I was there in person. I was like, yeah, actually I would. Well, no, you'd be sorry. So you're going to beat me up if I disagree with you? And I will say, most of those people that have threatened to beat me up because of disagreement were like modalist type people. And they all, once you start beating them down with the scriptures, they want to fight you. And it's like, okay, but listen, even if you beat the snot out of me, it's not going to change my mind on these things. You don't change somebody's mind by beating them up. Now, you can intimidate somebody maybe into, going along with something, but you're not actually going to change people's mind. So, we got to watch out for that. And so the problem I think that many people have today, I think a problem a lot of men have, the reason that they just can't handle somebody disagreeing, it's insecurity and just lack of confidence. Often, you have men who their wives do not submit to them. And often those are the guys that you see online rebuking every other woman that's out there. Why are they doing that? It's because they're frustrated with women because they can't get their wife under control. So they're scared to take it out on their wife, so they're going to go find some other woman out there to go after. A lot of people are like that too online. Maybe they're always going after other pastors. It's probably because they're scared to go after theirs, and so that's their way of just letting that frustration out. And I think it's pretty ridiculous. But if confident people, they're so sure that what they're doing is right that they don't need anyone else to be doing the same thing. They're just going to do it because it's what they believe. They're going to do it because it's conviction. I don't need all of the women of the earth dressing like a lady, for me to continue having my wife and daughters dress like ladies. I know what I believe about these things, and it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. I'm not ashamed of these things when it comes to how I dress, when it comes to how I do my hair, when it comes to how I run my church. Okay? I'm confident that what we're doing here is right, and so I'm not going to let someone intimidate me into doing something I just don't feel led to do. And I've had pastors before who, they've come here, and they'll try to pull the whole, they just kind of question it. They never just come out and rebuke me and just say, how dare you do this or how dare you not do this. No, they just kind of question it, and that typically works for a lot of preachers. But I'm not intimidated by that. I was just like, no, we just don't do that, And a lot of times people don't know what to do whenever, because I disagree with people all the time. Again, I'm opinionated, but I don't just break fellowship over every little thing. I'm content with letting people be different in some areas, and I think that's, again, and it doesn't come natural to me. That is not how I naturally am. It's something I have to work on. It's something that I have to, I've had to learn over the years, and so so a lot of men, they can't handle any disagreement because their position is so weak and so fragile, and they have no confidence in it. And not sometimes too, it is an inflated ego. It's like, how dare they disagree with me? Well, sometimes people are going to disagree with you. You have to get over it. Well, I can't let those people go around thinking they're right and I'm wrong. Why not? I mean, do you really think you have the authority to dominate their opinion and their thought life? Are you really interested in being that person's Lord? How about you just do what you believe is right and be an example? And if you're right, your life will prove it, and they'll come around eventually. But some people have that desire to be in control or to be preeminent, and they do that for whatever reason. And again, a lot of times too, maybe a lot of men, because their wife is not in submission to them, because their kids will not submit to them, they just feel so out of control. They're often the people out there just like demanding control in weird areas. It's like, people who actually have their life together, who, men who have wives that submit to them, who have kids that follow them, nobody needs to tell, they don't have any need to prove that they're this great leader. They're living the proof every day. And so they're happy and content right where they're at. The people that are typically making the big stinks online are typically people who their lives are just spiraling out of control. And I've seen that more than once. Some of the biggest rebukers of preachers that I've seen out there are people whose lives are a mess. Some of the biggest, just slamming a pastor's qualifications are guys that are so far from qualified it's not even funny. And it's just like, why are you even bringing this stuff up? And I don't fully understand all that. But, at the end of the day, people just need to many people just have an inability to understand their place. And this is how it is for me too, because this is where I have to like regularly do kind of a I don't know, a self-help therapy type thing, because I've been raised around don't compromise, and I don't believe in compromising. I don't want to change. I'm not like that. So at the same time, whenever you kind of feel that pressure to change, or somebody, which is how we feel a lot of times when somebody is giving us a different opinion. Somebody comes along and they tell me I'm wrong in my stance against Calvinism. All right, it's on. Okay. I don't want people changing me into that. Okay? And they're not going to. We are supposed to try to influence other people to do the right thing. But we do need to understand our place. And sometimes, it is, I don't want to avoid a battle. I don't want to run from a battle. But the truth is, if it's a battle that I don't really have to fight, then great, because I've got enough battles that I typically fight, so I don't want to fight any unnecessary ones. So the truth is, if you learn how to understand your place, that can help a lot. So we just need to learn to accept that some things are not our problem. Okay, that anonymous troll on Twitter that wants to argue with me about Calvinism, he's not my problem. Okay, I want to be a witness to as many people as I can, but at the same time, that person that just gets online and wants to start arguing with you, they're not necessarily your problem. I mean, do you even know who they are? If they walk up to you in the street, would you even know who they are? You probably wouldn't. So do you really need to wreck your day trying to change this person's mind, whose mind probably is not capable of being changed? They're there just to argue with you. They're there as somebody with nothing to lose. And this is one of the reasons too, I try not, especially to engage with the anonymous people on social media. I try not to engage with them. Sometimes I take the bait, but I typically try not to engage with the anonymous types because they have nothing to lose. They're anonymous. And even some people who are anonymous have nothing to lose because they have nothing. But, I do have a reputation. I do have something to lose. So if I get in an argument with them, no matter how stupid all the things they say are, they can say all the stupid things in the world. It's not going to cost them a thing. I say one dumb thing, it costs me a whole bunch of credibility. So I don't believe I'm called in that situation to just fight that battle until I win. You know what? I can just let that go. Fighting with just random people, Facebook friends, okay? I mean, how many of you like myself are Facebook friends with people that you don't even know? You don't even know who they are. And I'm not saying, you can't have friends that you don't know. We just had somebody here last week. I've been Facebook friends with a long time. Knew his name, didn't even know what he looked like. He came into the church and I didn't recognize him until he said his name. It's like, oh yeah, I know who you are from Facebook, But now I actually know the person, have a face to go with that person. But there's a lot of people out there like that we're friends with, and or I should say, friends on social media. But at the same time, you don't know who they are, and you don't need to go wasting your time with them. What they're going to end up doing is they're going to end up making you crazy. You're going to go get in an argument with all these people online. You're not going to get anywhere with them. It's going to make you feel insecure, make you feel defeated, and then you're going to disagree about what to eat for supper at home, and then you're just going to let your wife have it. You're going to take out all your frustrations from all your battles that day with people that you wouldn't even know if they walked up to you. That now you're going to take it all out on your family. That's not good. So just some things are just not your problem. Okay. That Ruckmanite talking about 3 gospels online, he's not your problem. Just let him be accursed, as the Bible says. And it's hard, but understand there are some situations we are just in no positions to help. In fact, we would only make things worse. If some guy is not doing a real good job, taking care of his wife and giving her attention, things that she needs, I can't help with that. I can, there's some things that only a husband is in a position to help. If there's a woman out there who's just way too big of a nag, you know, that's her husband's job to deal with that. Now, as a pastor, I might be able to preach a sermon about that, but at the end of the day, I can't go in somebody's home and just force them to do things. Sometimes, it's up to the husband. Kids that are out of control, if somebody else's kids, I can't go spank them. And one thing I've said this many times before, and I mean this, but when I'm at a restaurant or something and I hear a kid screaming, a lot of people talk about how it stresses them out and everything. It doesn't stress me out one bit. In fact, when I'm out to eat at a restaurant and I hear some kids start screaming, I actually get a very good feeling because of the fact it's not my problem. And because I've been there before when it's my problem and it's stressful. And so when I hear that kind of thing happen and I know I don't have to deal with it, you know what? It makes me feel real good. And you know what I typically want to do in that situation? If I see that parent, I just try to give them an understanding smile. Hey, I get it. I know what it's like. I don't try to look at them and judge them. And, I came here for a peaceful meal. Get that brat out here. I don't do that to people because I get it. I understand what it's like having the kid out of control. And so I'm just thankful. And even though that kid has problems and stuff and that parent's got something they need to deal with, I'm just relieved it's not my problem. And it's always a good day when you can get a hold of the fact that something's not your problems. And so, and again, if I could try to help, but I'd make things worse because it's not my position. So we got to stay focused and stay in your realm of authority. There's no reason to get so worked up, unless somebody starts invading your realm. Okay? So I have a certain realm of authority that God has given me, as a husband, as a father. That is my realm of authority. And I'll tell you what, if somebody came in and tried telling me what to do, trying to undermine or trying to change my plan, listen, I've got an end game in mind when it comes to how I'm raising my kids. I've got a plan in mind when it comes to how I do a lot of things. But somebody comes in, invades my territory, we're going to have a problem. And same thing too. So, if I don't want you invading my realm of authority, I shouldn't invade your realm of authority. And we can disagree. And, one of us is probably right. One of them is probably wrong. But you know what? At the end of the day, if it's not my authority, it's not my problem. Same thing with churches. Okay. Like I said, I'm opinionated about how church ought to be run. I have, that's just how I am. But again, I would freak out if some pastor came in here and tried telling me how to run my service, trying to tell me exactly, what we were going to do. Now I preach about how we do things in our church. I preach about why we don't do contemporary music and why we don't have the purple lights and skinny jeans. I preach all that stuff about why we don't do those things. And I have negative opinions many times towards those who do other things. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to be that way, then I've got to be willing to understand that other preachers, they can preach that same kind of message and they might have different opinions on those things. And I don't have to agree with those, but I don't have to necessarily go to war with that guy. It's not my church. It's not my realm of authority. He very likely is wrong, but it's out of my hands. I can't do anything about it. And so, we are supposed to make a difference. But if we're just always blowing up or breaking fellowship or just going all scorched earth every time someone disagrees with us, what are we really accomplishing? And that's where I want to, I do want to influence. I do want to make a difference. But at the same time too, for me, I do have a priority too of, I want to be friends with people. I want to encourage people without forcing people to be just like me. And obviously, when it comes to literally any subject, if another pastor wants to know my opinion on why we run our service a certain way, why I preach a certain doctrine, I will be more than happy to tell him what I think about that. And if they end up saying, man, you're right, I'm doing things your way, I mean, yeah, I'd probably get a swelled head over that or whatever. But either way, my friendship with people, my fellowship with people is not about always me trying to influence them, get them more like me. I'm not looking to start a movement. I'm not looking to get a network of preachers that are just like me, but I am for encouraging people that I think are accomplishing something for the Lord. And I am friends with any preacher that I'm friends with right now. It's because I like them where they are right now. I'm not friends with them so I can get them to start being more like me. No, I like where they are right now. And if they don't change at all, I'll still stay their friend. I'll still like them. And, because I'm so opinionated on a lot of my beliefs, I think a lot of preachers are nervous about being friends with me because they're convinced that I'm going to try to change them. And I'm not. I'm not about getting, all the preachers out there to believe my eschatology and stuff like that. My thing is, as long as they don't have a problem with me preaching the way I do, putting stuff out like I do, for those that want it, I'm fine. I'm fine with that. But, people don't have to change for me. I'm not trying to do that. And that's not an easy thing for me. That's something that I have to work on. And so I've had to learn how to just, disagree. I have certain beliefs that, mainly just eschatology, that does not go along with the mainstream independent fundamental Baptist world. Okay. But at the same time, I think the mainstream independent fundamental Baptist world is where the greatest people are at. They are my people, as far as I'm concerned. They are who I like. They are who I want to fellowship with. And so the thing is, there's a lot of people in that world too that are conformists in a lot of ways. And, your popes out there, they like those conformist types. And that's not me. I'm not a conformist type. And so as a result of that, there's always going to be those who are going to try to push me out, of the independent fundamental Baptist world. But at the same time, it's like, I ain't going anywhere. I like this crowd too much. And I have learned, how to disagree. And I'm still learning how to disagree. I'm still trying to get better about it. And, the Bible says in Proverbs 13:10, only by pride cometh contention, but with the well-advised is wisdom. And wisdom is very important when it comes to just literally everything in life. But when it comes to just disagreeing with somebody, you've got to learn to just have some wisdom in some things. And don't just let somebody get up and just tell you how to handle, like there's this one way that all situations where a disagreement is involved should be handled. I'm going to give you several verses here because whenever there's a disagreement, okay, pretty much all these scriptures we're going to look at, could be applied to a situation where there is a disagreement. But I'm going to show you there are multiple ways to deal with many of these things. So, for example, in Proverbs 26:4, it says, answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. But then it says in the next verse, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. Okay, why do we have conflicting messages there? Hey, well, because it's not really about a conflicting message. It's just sometimes you are better off to not answer the fool. But then there's other times you are better off to answer the fool. And you know what you need to do? You need to have wisdom. Now, some people just say you should never just answer fools. I never talk to fools. I never answer any of their questions. Okay, fine. But don't force me to only ever use that option, because sometimes I'll look at a situation, I'll look at a question, I think that person's a fool, but you know what? I don't want to be wise in his own conceit. Also, too, I want others who maybe just are simple, who are hearing this fool, to see someone give a good, honest, logical answer. So allow me in this situation to answer the fool. But don't get up there and then just scream, Proverbs 26:4, like that's just the rule for every time. No, there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time to answer the fool. There's a time to ignore the fool. 2 Timothy 2:2, and the things which thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men who should be able to teach others also. Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Right here, when it comes to preserving doctrine, he's telling us to be a good soldier. Now, whoever heard of a good soldier that didn't know how to fight? Okay, obviously, if you don't know how to fight, if you don't know how to defend, then you're not a good soldier. And fighting or being a soldier is more than just defending. You can't just defend. You got to have some offense too. But then it goes on in the same chapter. In verse 16, it says, but shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase into more ungodliness. So, sometimes you can say, well, anything you disagree with, just shun it. The Bible says shun it. So I'm going to shun these people. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to do anything. But then in verse 23, it says, but foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing that they do gender strifes. And the servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle unto all men, apt to teach, patient. Now, wait a minute. I thought I was supposed to be a soldier. I thought I'm supposed to fight these things. And now he's telling me not to strive? What's going on here? To be gentle? Who ever heard of a gentle soldier? That's what's going on here. And then it says, in meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves, if God peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth. What's going on? There is a time to just ignore people. There is a time to fight, to argue, to contend, to withstand to the face. There is a time where you need to be gentle, where you need to have patience. Okay, and patience, part of there, that tells me if I've got to have patience, that when I have my first conversation, they might not immediately come around to my way of thinking. So do I then shun them? Do I then mark them? I mean, a heretic after the first and second admonition, reject. Does that first and second admonition all have to happen right then? I told you once, I told you twice, you got your 2 admonitions, you're done. I'm out of here. Or wait a minute. Or can I give them some time to think about it? Can I, I've seen people too, they're so hardcore on the first and second admonition. I mean, they give people their first and second admonition the first time when they knock on their door. It's like you knocked on their door one time, and I'm all for, giving people a couple tries and then moving on. But are we going to give a full rejection? Why, and I've done this often before where I've go through the gospel and I feel like people are close, but they're just not there yet. And you know what I often do? I ask them, hey, can I come back and visit you again? Can I come back and do a follow-up visit with you? Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because, I want to give them another chance. And you don't have to just do it all at once. You don't just ask somebody something 2 times and then I can now reject them. But again, when to use all of these things, it takes wisdom. And there's always going to be somebody, wanting to, tell you when to do all these things for you. That's not going to work. Okay. That can't be done. When it comes to, there's a lot of things, because again, sometimes people, they might want to try a little harder when it comes to somebody that they really love, like a family member or a coworker or a friend, something like that. I just say all this to just say that there's going to be a lot of times where we're going to have conversations and we're just going to need to quietly, peacefully, lovingly, in a friendly way, walk away from that conversation. And why are we doing that? Because, I want to have another conversation again on another day. I want to give them time to think about these things. And I'm not just going to pick one of these verses, the one I like, and just apply that to every situation. And so we are allowed to disagree. We are allowed to let someone be wrong in an area. And, we're not compromising when we do that. There are some situations where you would be compromising. There's other areas where you're not compromising. We can even let someone be wrong on the gospel. So, oh, no, not on the gospel. No, we could let someone be wrong on the gospel for a time. What are we doing? We're trying to give people a chance. If somebody comes from some Pentecostal background, of course they're going to be wrong on the gospel. And if they grew up that way, I don't think I'm just going to go and talk to them 5 and 10 minutes and just immediately change them like that. It takes people a long time to process these things, and there's a lot that they have to overcome. And if I go and I know somebody and I care about that person and and I'm friends with them, and I don't want to just dump them after the first or even second time they've rejected my presentation of the gospel, I'm allowed to do that. And we're going to disagree, and I'm going to keep being nice to them. Oh, they're sending people to hell. Well, maybe they are, but I'm trying to get them out of hell. I'm trying to stop them from sending people to hell. And so how I choose to do that, that's my decision. The Apostle Paul, we see him constantly going to these synagogues, and he's contending with the people. He's trying to win them over, and he had different methods and he had different ways that he did that. But he did these things because he cared, and there was a lot of times he had to walk away from conversations where there was disagreement. He would spend many weeks sometimes in these synagogues on the Sabbaths teaching them. And he would get to a point where he would eventually say, he'd shake his garment and say, I'm done. I'm going to the Gentiles. But you know what? He wouldn't do it on his first time, and he wouldn't even always do it on his second time either. But he knew when he needed to do it. And you got to learn to just follow the Holy Spirit on some of these things. And most people today, I think you just want to fight with everybody. I think you don't have any security, and you just want to be contentious. And the Bible says in Jude 1:3, it says, Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that ye should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. How can you contend without being contentious? Again, there's a time to be contentious. There's a time not to be. In 1 Corinthians 11:16 it says, But if any man seem to be contentious, we have no such custom, neither the churches of God. You say, and this is when he was talking about, women praying with their head uncovered and the man having long hair and all that kind of stuff. And the Bible talks about those who are contentious in a negative way. It depends on what you're contending about. It depends on what you're being contentious about. And what a lot of people are doing today is they are taking the verses where it says to contend, where it says to rebuke sharply, where it's taken all the extreme things and they're applying it to every situation. And that is wrong. There is a time to have patience. There is a time where in meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves, if God peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth. It almost sounds like, we got to just give people some time. We've got to allow the Holy Spirit to do a work in their heart. But, you don't want to do that because you don't have any patience. That's, that, and right there is a key. I think when it comes to being able to disagree, you have to have patience. And, if somebody wants to argue with me about how to have a good marriage or how to raise kids, you know what? I've always been patient. I've always been confident enough in that where I've been able to be patient because, I grew up in a good home where I had a good example on how to raise kids. I've seen a lot of families who have turned out a really good product, you could say. I've seen a lot of bad examples, and I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on what's right and wrong when it comes to that subject. Now, I have people who regularly disagree with me, sometimes very strongly. But you know what? It's never bothered me because I'm that confident in my position, and I am patient, and I'm willing to wait. And hey, let's see what happens. Okay, let's wait 10 years. You know what? We can yell about who's right or wrong in this situation right now, and neither of us are going to change anyone's minds. Or we could wait 10 years and look at the proof. I'm fine. I'm fine with doing that. I'm fine with waiting 10 years and looking at the proof. And the truth is, I don't even need to wait 10 years because I can look at the proof, because what we've done, it's been patterned off of other people that have been successful. And so as far as I'm concerned, I already have proof. I also have Bible for these things. So I'm not worried about it. But insecure people are, and they lose their minds. And sometimes it's just okay. If you want to argue with me about how to raise kids, we can disagree on that, because I'm not allowed to raise your kids, and you're not allowed to raise mine, and you can't. In the meantime, I'm gonna continue doing what I know is right. You're gonna continue doing what you have the authority to do, and if you get it wrong, that stinks. I'm sad. I'm sorry for you and for your kids, but it's not my problem, and so I'm not going to lose sleep over it and let it negatively affect me. And so anyway, hopefully this, some of these things will help you. Just again, just understand: is this in your realm of authority? Are you in any position, to do anything about this? Just let people be different. Let people be wrong, and you can be at peace with yourself. And if that's hard for you to do, you know what? I'm not mad at you at all, because that kind of thing is very hard for me. You're just probably another alpha male, and I prefer men be alpha males. We've got another, generation of passive limp-wristed types where everybody's right. They don't struggle in this area, but they're also passive, limp-wristed, and just wrong in everything and failing in life. But they can handle a disagreement. Well, great. They're good in that one area, but they're gonna have a million other areas where they struggle. So I'm not mad at you if you struggle with this, but just do like I do, and try to overcome it. And you can do it, and I believe you'll be successful, and you'll be happy you did. So I hope this was a help and a blessing to everyone. God bless you. And again, if you have any suggestions for subject matter, let me know. Leave a comment about it, and hopefully we'll get to that in the near future. So we will talk to you all later. God bless.